thank you very much. Just don't tell my kids I'm a troublemaker. Okay? I never get away with that. But I want to thank Charlie Baker, Sheriff Hodgson, and also Mike Sullivan for being here tonight, because these are three outstanding men that have been phenomenal leaders in this state. And every single one of them have stuck by me since the very beginning, when no one believed in me, no one thought I had a chance. They were there for me, and they supported me, and they were, you know, among the very few that did. So thank you all very much. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight too. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to be here. I couldn't do my job without you standing right here beside me, supporting me and helping me out. And I truly appreciate all your support, everything you do for me. And you're always here for me, and I'm just very humbled and grateful. So thank you very much. And I'm very lucky. I have a very supportive family who often comes as well. My dad always comes from New Hampshire to see me. My kids have a great time with this too. They've been really getting politicized, and a little bit too much, I think. So my 10-year-old comes home from her aunt's house last week. They slept over, and she says, "Mom, Auntie told me we can't talk about politics anymore because we disagree too much." So she's got to be pretty good to getting under the skin of her 40-year-old aunt when they're talking and debating about politics. And the other one gets in on it too. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. We're waiting for the bus this week. And my 8-year-old says, "Mom, I really wish that you would take that money that they're willing to pay you to drive to work, the per diem pay," so they know about this. And they also know that it's about $3,000 to $4,000 a year extra I could be making. She says, "I wish you'd take that so that we could go on vacation." I said, "Riley, I don't think the taxpayers should be paying for us to go on vacation." And Ashton pipes in and says, "Well, why not? They pay for Obama to go on vacation." Out of the mouth of babes, as they say. That kid is going places. She'll be in office, and then Riley will get the hack job from When I was first elected, I got a lot of advice too. A lot of people telling me, lay low, don't make any waves, you'll be fine. Well, you know what I did with that advice, right? If I had a nickel for every time people told me I couldn't do something, in fact, I probably wouldn't have to have these fundraisers.
I know.
You know, they told me when I started out I couldn't beat an 18-year incumbent. And then when I was elected, they told me, "You're not going to be able to hold office hours every week. Nobody does that." And then they told me I couldn't start a small business caucus and have it be successful. And Keiko has been very successful in the small business caucus getting legislation passed. They told me I couldn't get any EBT reforms passed. And they told me I couldn't win a re-election, especially in a presidential year, after I had won, after I won by only 31 votes the first time. And recently they told me that I couldn't make the MBTA disclose their pension information to the taxpayers who fund it. And you know what I told them? Watch me. Where there is a will, there is a way. I have the will, and we have gotten together all those things done and much, much more in just 2.5 years. One thing you need on Beacon Hill is perseverance. After filing an amendment 3 times over 2 years to make them disclose the MBTA information and make it public, it passed. Now, that might be a long time in normal people years, but up on Beacon Hill, that's a pretty quick time to get something. The third time that I filed the amendment was during the debate on the transportation bill. A transportation bill to raise your taxes, to fund and bail out the MBTA. And my amendment was ruled out of the scope of the bill. Now think about this. My amendment about the finances of the MBTA was ruled out of scope on the bill about the finances of the MBTA. Only in Massachusetts could that happen. But guess what happened? It passed in the Senate when it went over to the Senate. So the House had to kind of get the egg off its face and then ended up passing it as well. And, you know, it was that refusal to back down and refusal to listen to their flimsy excuses constantly about why they can't do things. Nowhere is perseverance needed more than when it comes to fighting for EBT reform. You know, together we have stuck with that. And in the face of being told that all the fraud is anecdotal and we've just got a little bit of leakage here and there. Well, again, we have refused to back down and refused to accept their excuses. After everything that I've been saying for 2.5 years now has been proven true by the Inspector General's report that Charlie was talking about earlier. And there was a minimum, it was just a minimum of $25 million of fraud found in the EBT system. And other things that I've been saying for 2.5 years. Social Security numbers were not being checked before your taxpayer dollars were being handed out. How can you verify that someone should even be getting the money? Self-declarations were happening. So self-declaration is you go into the DTA office, you scribble on a piece of paper, I live with Uncle John and I pay him $800 a month for rent, cross my heart, hope to die, and that's your verification for your residency and your rent. So these self-declarations are used for everything. Residency, employment, the fact that you have children, meeting the work requirement. There was a woman in jail filling out her work requirement sheets and sending them in and collecting her money.
Oh, I remember that.
Folks, you can't make this stuff up.
Oh, we know.
Stuff up
Nope,
that's
it's not
just,
a
it's like the
fabrication.
Twilight Zone here.
Strange but true. Strange as it is. What now?
Okay, that was Phil Dan in case anyone's wondering. So of course there was a rush to clamp down on this fraud, right? Wrong. But I, of course, offered some very common sense amendments to the budget. Common sense is very lacking on Beacon Hill. And I wanted to say, you know, look, let's require Social Security numbers before anybody gets a dime of taxpayer money. Right? Sounds pretty reasonable, I think. Stop the practice of self-declarations and the honor system when it comes to taxpayer dollars. Require sponsors of immigrants who come here to be billed on a yearly basis if that immigrant collects any money. They're supposed to be billed. Let's bill them and get that money back. And then this other one was very timely, considering what came out in the news today. My amendment was to set up a special hotline for law enforcement officers so that they can report fraud and abuse, and also the requirement would be that they would have to be contacted. Well, guess what came out today in the paper? This is what Charlie was talking about. Cop alerts welfare officials, but they do nothing. Well, who do you think dropped the dime on this one, guys? This detective called me. So I called the Herald and said, gee, I think you might be interested in this, and it looks like they were. And this cop told me when he called there, they did a full investigation. This woman had 2 SUVs registered in her name. Those are assets. You're not supposed to have that when you're on welfare. She was collecting Section 8, WIC, cash. And you know what they told him? And he had this in his police report, in his investigation. Sorry, sir, but we can't do anything with your anecdotal information. Anecdotal information, they called it. So that was when he ended up filing, you know, the report. And they still didn't do anything about it. But you know what? I bet you they're going to do something about it now. So all of these amendments, these common sense amendments I just told you about, were rejected in the budget. Not one of them they took. But you're going to hear from some legislators, from some of your reps, that there's great EBT reforms in the budget. Do not be fooled. The reforms in the budget are a lot of window dressing, and they do not go far enough to stop the fraud and abuse. And I am telling you that we're going to be back here with more stories like that in a month, in 3 months, in 8 months. And then, and only then, will they be shamed into passing some of my common sense amendments. But by that time, millions of taxpayer dollars will already have been wasted. What's really disturbing about all of this waste and fraud and abuse, and Keiko touched on this, I think, is that the governor wants to close Taunton State Hospital. Close Taunton State Hospital while he turns a blind eye to fraud and abuse in the millions and millions in taxpayer dollars. And I sit on the Mental Health Advisory Committee for Taunton State Hospital. And I have noticed, several things have become very clear. And one is that we have a shortage of acute care beds. We have a shortage of long-term beds. We have jails filled with people who need mental health care but are instead incarcerated. And we have a shortage of community services. Fortunately, the House budget does preserve Taunton State Hospital. But if we stopped all the fraud in our public assistance programs, we could have 5 Taunton State hospitals throughout this state, and we could really help people that are most vulnerable. So we fight this uphill battle to stop the fraud and abuse. But yet, a $500 million tax increase is passed in a week. No hearings, no nothing. I have another $500 million number for you. $510 million. That's how much we are right now in the fiscal year above what we expected to collect. $500 million. So yay, no tax increase, right? Wrong. Our state treasurer, who thinks he's going to be our governor, rushed out to tell us not to use that revenue, they call it revenue, not to use that revenue, which is code for, we're still going to raise your taxes, and then we're going to spend it on something else. They just don't seem to get what these tax increases do to the working poor and the middle class. But I do get it. And you can count on me to be up there, standing up to them, standing up for the taxpayers, standing up to Governor DeVal, Patrick, when he calls me up and tells me, don't say those awful things about me. Even when he comes out and lies about me, I am not going to back down. I'll just whip up my phone records, unlike Tim Hardy. You sent me to the State House to make a difference. And every day, I remember the trust you put in me. I remember the responsibility I have to you. And I remember that you are counting on me. With my good friend Keiko here, and our next governor, Charlie Baker, here. And a great sheriff like Todd Hodgson, we are going to be able to make a real difference. So I want to thank you all again very much for coming out tonight. We all appreciate it greatly. Everyone have a great evening, and I hope to say goodbye to all of you before you leave. Thank you so much.